Peter, do you want to just test your mic just to make sure? You're good.
I can't see anybody though, but.
All right, good evening and welcome to our special committee of the whole meeting for October 19th, 2020. We'll start with a roll call tonight. We've got regrets from Councillor Dwyer, Councillor Alford.
Present.
Councillor Allen.
Present.
Councillor Brennan.
Present.
Councillor McKenna.
Here.
Mayor Penko.
Present.
And CO Morris, do you want to do a roll call for staff?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have with us on the staff side, we have Jennifer Miller, Nadine Bennett, Carrie Costello, Art Manhire, Troy Dunlop, Janet Kozil, and Jason Barlow.
All right, great, thank you. So we'll start with any amendments to the agenda. Not seeing any amendments, we'll move to disclosure of monetary interest. Still not seeing any. We have no delegations or adoption of minutes tonight or CIO director's reports or correspondence items due to the nature of the meeting. So we'll move to in-camera issue 7A, personnel issue about an identifiable individual. Does somebody want to move to go in camera? Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McKenna. All those in favor? So that is carried. So we will go in camera. All right, welcome back. A rising report from the in-camera issue is that we'll appoint someone to the Accessibility Committee as priority issue 8C. With that, we'll move on to priority issue 8A, water treatment plant high lift pump number 183 to Mr. Jason Barlow.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson, members of council, and the mayor. This report, 2020-127, is for the unplanned repair of our high lift pump number 183. And the recommendation is that council and corporation authorize the emergency repair of the high lift pump 183 at the water treatment facility, and that the unplanned repair expense estimated at $14,690 plus HST be funded from capital reserves, and further that staff be authorized to award the work to the low bidder, Hewitt's Brockville Limited, who completed the rebuild for another high lift pump, which was 181 earlier this year. The reason we need this repair is a mechanical seal failure on high lift pump 183. We have 4 duty pumps. This is just one of 4, but as per our license and our permit to operate the facility, we're required to have these functioning and operational. Staff noticed the leak on regular rounds, and because of that leak, the pump needs to be taken completely apart, so it doesn't make sense to just change the seals out on a pump that's 10 years old. We might as well go ahead and have the whole pump looked at and rebuilt and refurbished so that it's back to 100%. The cost of the seals themselves are anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000. So that's half the cost is just the seals. So there is the requirement for the other wear parts in there that need to be looked at and possibly replaced before this is put back into service. The implications, the overall upset cost is approximately the $15,000. Now we're hoping that all these costs can be seen with savings off of the low lift pump, which was rebuilt early this year. There's a savings of $9,000 from that capital project, and we're expecting some savings from our engineering design work for our DAF drain system that was authorized for this year. So we're expecting to be able to offset the cost of this with those savings fully from the capital reserve.
Great. Thank you. Jason, do we have any questions, comments on this report? Councillor Alford and then Mayor Penko.
Yeah, I think Mr. Barlow's rationale for this is sound, and I will support staff's recommendation.
Great. Mayor Penko.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So you mentioned there could be other parts which are quite warm when they start taking the pump apart, and would the amount budgeted forecasted for this be sufficient, or do we need to provide any leeway for any additional expense that may come out of the rebuild?
No, I believe with the rebuild, Hewitt's, they did pump 181, and this would be pretty much the same cost. So everything that needs to be put back in with bearings or wear rings or different parts that need to be fixed are included in this cost already.
Okay, thank you. Well, I support the recommendation.
Great. So seeing no further questions or comments, we'll accept the recommendation and move that forward to our council meeting later tonight. Thank you, Mr. Barlow. We will move on to priority item 8B, 2021 budget guidelines report. Treasurer Kozil.
Mr. Chair, so I'm here this evening to have our very preliminary discussion on the 2021 budget guidelines at that time of year again. So in late July, early August, staff commenced with the process of preparing the first draft. The capital budget was prepared, being drawn from the asset management plan, as well as the priorities denoted in the strategic plan. The draft operating budget is being assembled based on existing levels of service delivered by the town. And it would be instructive to identify any service level changes that council may wish to examine or implement in the following year. So as a starting point for our discussions, I just want to recap the rate increases in the 2020 budget. The water and the wastewater increases were CPI at the time, which was 1.9%. The additional revenue from that was approximately 50,000 for each budget. There was no tax rate increase. There was growth, which equated to just slightly less than 1%. It is important to note that these did deviate from what the long-term financial plan does call for. The water is forecasted a 7% increase, the wastewater 8%, and the tax rate increase of 3.38, as well as growth, which is projected at approximately 1%. So at this early juncture, there are some unknown factors that I wanted to bring to council's attention. OMPF being the largest one, that's a non-conditional grant that we get. It's about 3.6 million. We do know that the province has indicated the overall envelope will remain the same, but within that, there are different grant components. That's the part we don't know if they're going to vary from 2020's for Smith Falls. So our 2020 allocation for that is 3.6 million. The other one is the OSIP formula-based funding, which is used for capital. The 2020 allocation was 605,000. At this point in time, we don't even know if that is going to continue, and we're not even sure when the potential announcement will be made for that. County shared services, the 2021 budget figures are still unknown. I reached out to the county and they anticipate we should get those mid-November. The 2020 assessment, as council's aware, MPAC has a 4-year cycle, which ended in 2020, and the province is going to have assessments remain at the status quo in 2021. Preliminary calculations, even with new construction, we're still probably going to be in a negative position of about 55,000. The reason being is the additional tax revenue is minimal for new construction at this point in time, and there were some significant industrial, commercial, and multi-residential write-offs. We should get our roll based on actuals in the second week of December, pardon me. The other one that's still unknown is the additional Tweed assessment. We do anticipating receiving confirmation of that prior to the end of 2020. And as I've noted in previous council reports, I just want council to be aware that that could materialize less than what we had budgeted in 2020, which in turn will impact 2021. Another big driving factor for our operational budget is payroll, which is about 51% of our operational costs. We are in the midst of some negotiations. QP's agreement expired at the end of April. The town's non-union group and fire expired at the end of 2019. So as I say, there is negotiations underway, but there is a possibility we won't know those at the time of budget approval. And the last thing I wanted to just kind of bring to council's attention is the impact of the current pandemic. It's sort of twofold: expenditure increases as well as revenue losses. So for example, while arena programming is underway for resumption efforts, it's too soon to know exactly what the actual impact will be. So staff are proposing that we proceed with a status quo for the 2020 budget figures. And hopefully anticipate that won't be in a deficit for 2021. And it's also important to note that future funding from upper levels of government is unknown at this time as well. So within my council report, I did lay out a tentative draft schedule for the budget. So if council had any issues with those dates that I proposed, if you could let me know and provide direction tonight on that. So within my report, there are 3 options. Option 1 being develop a budget based on the approved long-term financial plan. As noted earlier, water increases at 7, wastewater at 8, and tax rate increase at 3.38. Option 2 is again based on status quo service levels and CPI, which currently to the end of August is 1.1%. But it is important to note that there are some costs that are outside of our control, such as insurance, which are some of the items that were denoted in my report. And final option is develop a budget based on service levels adjustment as directed by council. So with that, I'll pause, and if you have any questions for me.
Great, thanks, Janet. We've got Councillor Brennan up first with questions.
Yeah, just I would support option 2 at this point. There is a lot of unknowns. I am happy that we're embarking on this in October and not January or February as we've done in the past. So I want to thank staff for laying out I think which is a realistic schedule. There are unknowns that we need to figure out. But at this point, you know, option 2 with the CPI, let's keep it that way for now, and then we'll figure it out. The other part of your report, and I know that we put it on Speak Up Smith Falls, and the uptake was very small, which is not, I mean, in the past few years, it's not surprising. I'm just wondering, and just put it out there, is there a way, is there an option to do some sort of a virtual town hall? And maybe, you know, if no one comes, they don't, but at least we've tried to reach out as much as possible. And I think Ottawa is doing the same thing in terms of their budget. And, you know, they can invite people to apply to come speak, and we'll all be here to answer questions and staff and that sort of thing. So rather than having a public meeting, having a virtual public meeting. But option 2 is for me.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Brennan. So there's been a suggestion of a virtual town hall. Is there a consensus for that among council, or would anybody like to comment on that specifically before we move on to the next comments? Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not adverse to it, but I'm also not overly optimistic about a virtual meeting. We've had the public meetings have been very lacking in attendance. This Speak Up Smith Falls to only have 12 people engage is telling. And again, I'm not adverse to it. If you want to give it a shot, I do think that based on my experience, based on the experience of this council, I wouldn't be overly optimistic, but I'd like to hear what staff thought of that.
Mayor Penko?
Yeah, I think it's a format that is probably suitable considering the environment we're in. We've all adapted to this change reality, and it can be a pretty effective means. We know that we can do it with a lot. There's not a finite number of people, but I believe we could accommodate several hundred people if it got down to that. As maybe wishful thinking, we'd have that many. It'd be a matter of having, I guess, a moderator and a way of facilitating that, considering how many people may be there wanting to ask questions. But I think there's a way of likely doing it effectively. And the other question would be, at what stage do we do it? I think more than likely it'd be after we've been through at least the first draft of the budget, and we're seeking feedback at that point. But again, yeah, but C.M. Morris looked like he was ready to comment too.
Thanks, Mayor Penko. Councillor Alford, did you have a response?
Not a response, Mr. Chair, but we rely quite heavily on social media and the technology that allows us to get this information in. And I wonder if we shouldn't think about doing something that's a lot of people don't wish to speak on camera. It's intimidating. But I wonder if we might think about doing something mailed out in our tax bills or even in the paper that allows a greater audience who are not technologically comfortable, whether that might even be a better scenario to get feedback from the public. We concentrate a lot online, and I don't know that fits for all of our constituents.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Alford. So Mayor Panko was suggesting doing something between when the first preliminary budget will come out on November 23rd and the second draft is out on December 14th. I seem to see nodding heads that there's agreement on that timing. C.O. Morris, did you have comments on the format or the style of how it would work?
I think the mayor covered it. There are a few logistical considerations, having a moderator, but we can certainly do it if that's the wish of the committee.
Okay, great. So if there's any further comments on that one, Councillor McKenna?
No, I was going to comment on the budget itself, or the draft report.
Great. Well, if everybody's good with the consultation discussion, then yeah, let's move back to the overall report. So if you want to give your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They're not unusual, but perhaps more unusual than ever before is the number of unknowns that our staff and council are facing in putting together a budget. And some of these are fairly high risk if certain scenarios play out, or if the province is unable to come through with their normal grants. There's a lot of unknowns. I'm not suggesting we adopt option 3, but I wonder if it wouldn't be wise for us to have contingency if we needed to do some service level adjustments, have those at least been considered. If one of those scenarios or more than one don't play out in our favor, we may need to accept option 2, but also option 3, or have some of that in our pocket. So I'm just wondering what my colleagues, or if the treasurer has any comment on option 3, and have we given some consideration if we need to go there? Thank you.
Treasurer Kozil, did you want to respond to that?
Certainly, if that's something council wanted to pursue, but I think we're at too early of a sort of stage to do that. Something else to consider, and I certainly am not one to kind of offer this up, but we do have, our reserves are in a healthy position now, much healthier than they were, say, 5 years ago. So keep that in mind, that there is some flexibility within those reserves.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor Panko.
I think this is my 11th budget cycle since being on council, and really unlike any other one. I think most years everything was fairly predictable, and we were of course discussing what rates to apply to water and how what we're going to do with the taxes. And yeah, this year is there's so many variables that we won't even know by January, and we're going to have to make some assumptions about what next year is going to look like when it comes to COVID related factors and how that's going to impact our arena operations. And even if we can have some insight into it early in the year, we have no idea what it's going to be like next fall. So it's going to be a challenging year to put a budget together, and we have to work with certain assumptions, and they can have a degree of flexibility. At the same time, we know that some of our constituents are having some more difficult financial challenges this year than some other years. We don't know what the federal supports will be through next year if the pandemic continues throughout the year. So we have to be sensitive to their abilities to pay as well. So I will support option 2 at this stage. And when it comes to, I guess, Councillor McKenna indicated, option 3, I prefer not to have to go there, but I think staff could probably do some work behind the scenes in preparation for our first budget meeting as to what factors, what we could possibly consider. At the same time, we can't lose sight of the reality that we've got a long-term financial sustainability plan that has been committed to by previous councils and this council, and we don't want to lose sight of the longer term objectives and also the capital needs, recognizing that capital work that we defer, and there's been capital work deferred every year, creates a bigger infrastructure deficit in the future. So it's going to be a very difficult high wire act this year to try and balance what's fair and reasonable to everybody.
Thanks, Mayor Panko. We've got Councillor Alford and then Councillor McKenna. Sierra Morris, did you want to respond to that?
I can wait until the others have asked their question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor McKenna and Mayor Panko. There is so much not known right at this point, but if I look at the survey, although 12 respondents aren't a good, isn't enough of a sample, it's indicative that one of the questions is, would you support cutting services in order to reduce the tax rate? And that is, every other time we've asked that question was split 50-50. It's quite clear in there that they would support cutting services to reduce the tax rate. So I don't think that's ever off the table. It's certainly not until we know a lot more. And I'm very glad that we have healthy reserves, and that will stand Smiths Falls in good stead. But by the same token, we don't know what the heck else is coming in 2021.
Thanks, Councillor Alford. Councillor McKenna.
Just the reason I didn't refer to option one, which is part of our long-term financial plan regarding wastewater and the water rates, is because I was assured the last time we talked about this is that when we do update our asset management plan, we'll look at that and see, we'll also be updating our priorities. We'll understand the longer term. And I know that's coming. So I'm interested in making sure we are sustainable, but I know that I won't raise that again until we've had that updated plan. But I've not lost sight of, we have to pay for our water and sewer, not just today, but going forward.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Allen?
Yeah, I agree with option two, or I'd like us to be able to do option two, but like my colleagues, it's going to really depend on the next while. And I want to thank our treasurer, not just for this budget, but for the fact that we're in such good condition under her leadership. I also think having an early start to look at all of these things will get us thinking about what we have to do. And I hope we don't have to affect service level, but that's not something that we can promise at this point. So I think we take a day at a time and hope that this ends sooner rather than later. But that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. So I'm hearing a consensus with council that option one's off the table. Option two is the preferred choice, but option three may be required depending on how the circumstances unfold. CAO Morris, did you have comments to make before we move on?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you. I think Councillor McKenna brings up a really solid point. We have 10 unknowns at this point that we presented. If even one or two of those go sideways, we've introduced a new dimension to this very difficult budget. So we'll know more as time goes on, but I think we've been given enough direction to forge ahead and build the budget. We just want everyone to be aware there are risks and get a comfort level with those risks before you approve the budget in January. So we do have time, but I just want to assure committee that if we find ourselves in a position where one or more of these unknowns fails to come through, we will bring forward a corresponding solution in terms of service level adjustments for your consideration. So we will give that some thought as we move forward and we have a better idea of what we're up against. But obviously we'd like to keep it status quo, but we'll have a suite of options for you should we be in the unenviable position of having to make adjustments.
Okay, great. Thank you, CAO Morris. Are there any last questions, comments before we move on? Okay, well, thank you very much, Janet, for being so proactive about this and getting it all laid out for us. So have a good night, and we will move on to item 8C with Deputy Clerk Nadine Bennett.
Good evening. Tonight I'm here to request Council's permission to appoint Kelly Island to the Accessibility Committee. Kelly is the owner of Island Treasures on Main Street in Smiths Falls, and she has submitted an application to be part of our newly appointed Accessibility Committee. The committee will be meeting in the next week, and the meeting will be aired live, so everyone's welcome to watch their first meeting. So if council's supportive, we'll bring forward a resolution to tonight's council meeting to appoint Kelly Island. Great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Nadine. So we will deal with that at our council meeting coming up next. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Alfred. All those in favor? All right, so we are adjourned at 5:34 and we will move on to our council meeting.
Okay, we'll get things ready here. I don't believe we need to step out or make any particular pause.
Is Peter still here? Or?
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay. We can hear you, we can't see you. Okay.
Oh, I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
Okay. And I assume the deputy clerk is still present?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So we will proceed. So I'll call to order this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, October 19th. I have no announcements this evening. Other than Remembrance Day, I guess I should mention that the Legion has announced that it will be holding a virtual Remembrance Day celebration ceremony that will be broadcast through Facebook Live, Cogeco, as well as some other means. So there should be an opportunity for the entire community to tune in on November 11th. Details have been released by the Legion. I assume they'll be circulated broadly. But we're grateful the Legion has moved ahead to create a virtual Remembrance Day celebration, and we look forward to that in November. Ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I hear none. We have no delegations this evening. We have no adoption minutes. I will survey council for reports. Started with Councillor Allen, nothing. Councillor Alford, nothing. Councillor Brennan.
I'll report next week.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire. And Councillor McKenna.
Yes, Your Worship, if I may, I'd like to report on the recent Lanark County Community Services Committee, which the mayor and I attended on Wednesday. Lanark County's, as you know, we must operate a long-term care facility, and that is at Lanark Lodge. And through an agreement with the town of Smith Falls, our residents benefit from that wonderful facility. Unfortunately, the building's getting it up in age. It requires a new HVAC system, so air conditioning and air exchange. And that won't come cheap. It's a $2 million item. And when you think about our residents sitting in a heat wave in the middle of summer after going through COVID, the last thing we want is anybody in that level of risk. So the county will be recommending purchasing a new HVAC system for the lodge from reserves in the tune of $2 million. I also would like to report that the provincial government has announced a social assistance recovery and renewal plan. And as people watching know, both Ontario Works and ODSP are delivered through the county. And what's going to happen, instead of taking applications at the local level for Ontario Works or the old welfare system, this will all be centralized. So it'll all be done online. And half of, perhaps up to half of the services currently being offered at the local level will be consolidated in Toronto and will all be done online and digitized. They're going to start with 9 pilots, and one of the local counties, Renfrew County, will be part of that new pilot project to see how it works. So stay tuned. The impact of staff reduction is real. We don't know yet. The intention is to take paperwork out of the hands of local people so that they can better help people looking for employment and who may need other services. But for those interested, please pay attention to the social assistance recovery and renewal plan that's just been announced. It will be interesting to see if the uploading of services at the provincial level turns out to be a reduction in cost at the local level, but we'll stay tuned for that. On a very positive side, the county has agreed to purchase a vehicle called a Trishaw. This is a 3-wheeler vehicle that is pedaled and person powered. And in the front, they will take residents of Lanark Lodge in the nice weather for bicycle rides. Volunteers will drive the bike around the many paths around the lodge, and we'll get our residents out for a bike ride. If you'd like to learn more, look at accessible cycling, Cycling Without Age, Lanark County. It's a wonderful initiative. And finally, just the province did say that there will be a rent freeze for residential properties across Ontario in 2021, 0% increase. And if you read the fine print, that includes retirement homes. Smith Falls has 2 or 3 retirement homes. So their rent increase will not go up either. So that's good news for our seniors living in those homes on fixed income. Thank you, Your Worship. That's all I had to report.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. You report on community services. I'll report on corporate services from the county from last Wednesday. A big one that really affects us directly is the cost sharing joint service agreement between the town and the county. So historical information here, to go back to earlier this year, the county was reassessed. CRA had advised the county should be charging the town HST on the services it provides for the town, including Leonard Lodge and social services. That issue has been appealed. And we're quite confident we should be successful in that venture, but we want the agreement between the town and the county had to be updated to ensure that there be no further issues going forward. So the agreement confirms the county is a delivery agent for the town for the services it provides, and ensures the county does not have to charge the town for HST. So the issue is resolved from 2020 forward, and of course, staff and our auditor are working diligently in trying to resolve the issue with CRA for years past. And that's it for my reports. We'll move on to, we have no bylaws. We have a couple of motions we need to look after this evening. Our first is with Councillor McKenna, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I do not right this minute have the wording on that motion. I apologize.
Okay.
If you wish.
How about, I'm gonna, go ahead.
Sorry, Sean, if you wish, I can read it. Peter could just say who's the mover and seconder if you wish.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford.
And it's to deal with the water treatment plant high lift pump 183, unplanned repair. The motion is that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls authorize out of budget approval for an emergency repair of the high lift pump HLP-183 at the water treatment facility, and that the unplanned repair expense estimated at $14,690 plus HST be funded from capital reserves, and further that staff be authorized to award the work to Hewitt's Brockville Limited.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, we've just received the report from Mr. Barlow, and during regular maintenance of the 4 pumps, one of the pumps seal seems to have failed, or it has failed, and it would put in jeopardy, this is the pumps that drive water into our, drinking water into our system, as well as the water tower. And so an emergency repair needs to be done and replacement. So the money is available. It's out of budget, but they believe that they've saved enough out of their ongoing water treatment budget that it should offset the cost of this. So certainly council was keen to make sure that this problem get fixed right away.
Great, thank you. It's moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls authorize out of budget approval for an emergency repair of the high lift pump in brackets HLP-183 at the water treatment facility, and that the unplanned repair expense estimated at $14,690 plus HST be funded from capital reserves, and for the staff be authorized to award the work to Hewitt's Brockville Ltd. All in favor? That is carried. Councillor Alford, you're up next with the committee appointment.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that Council of the Corporation of Smiths Falls appoint Kelly Island to the Accessibility Committee for the 2018 to 2022 term of council.
Great, thank you. Discussion, Councillor Alford.
Yes, Miss Island is the owner of Island Treasures and has volunteered herself to be on this committee, has some things to offer in terms of her own personal experience. And I think she'll be a wonderful addition to that committee, who is meeting for the first time next week, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, the Council of the Corporation of Town of Smiths Falls appoint Kelly Island to the Accessibility Committee for the 2018-2022 term of council. All in favor? That's carried. Welcome, Kelly. Inquiries and announcements. Councillor McKenna, I believe, has a trivia question for us.
Well, I had a bit of an announcement, if I may.
Oh, sure, of course.
I just want to mention to my colleagues and those listening that it's 2 years ago this week that we were elected to this council. It's been, for the most part, very enjoyable. I've appreciated the hard work of my colleagues on council, the mayor, and especially the staff. I do want to say that I feel always very well prepared. The reports are excellent, put together by staff. They've helped me in my first year as I was orienting to the service. And I appreciate my colleagues' hard work and determination around the Horseshoe. And I do want to encourage all those young people out there that are thinking in 2 years there's going to be another election to think about how they could get involved and perhaps throw their hat in the ring. And it is a very rewarding and worthy job to have. And I would encourage those who've been thinking about it to do some homework, reach out to us, and think about running in the next election. It's a great public service, and I want as many names in that hat as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll circle back to you for the trivia question.
Okay, there is a local songwriter who's written a beautiful song about Smith Falls Old Home Week, and I just wonder if anyone could name him. Well, I've already given away his gender.
Curly Hoskins.
No, it's been on the radio. I heard it on an audio radio station.
Oh.
Councillor Brennan.
Freddie Dixon.
It's close, but it's Campbell Wood. And he's written a song about Old Home Week. He
Well,
mentions the Lego Hotel.
there are actually 3 songs about that. One's the one Campbell wrote. Curly Hoskins wrote one that some of us around the table participated in. I don't care if that's ever distributed again. And then Freddie Dixon is.
Well, I think
I did say recent. I did say recent.
Oh,
So,
recent.
It's great that there's so much. They're wonderful, all 3 of them, I'm sure.
Okay, so anybody who has a copy of the original one that Councillor Alford does not want in circulation, please forward me a copy. Okay.
I'm not on
motion, motion for adjournment is with Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan that this council adjourn its proceedings at 5:47 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 5:47 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Aye.